All right, well, that's great. That's what a tremendous way to learn new techniques. You're in college now. You're at Camden County College.
Camden
Last
County
we checked.
College for 2 years.
For two
Yeah.
years now, you're starting your own bass club. What's going
Yeah.
on with school? You back?
School's good. School, community college, the two big things there for me, the 2 years I was there, was finding out what I wanted to do and then, getting enough credits to move on. The interesting thing I realized is that I was actually a decent student, up to that point. I didn't know, I didn't think I was any good at it, but the same thing in my fishing. I started to figure out techniques that made me an okay student. And that was a really good piece of my life, figuring that out. And I think, and by the way, at this time, I'm DJing hardcore. Now this is my main source of income, is DJing. And it's something I picked up in the hip hop era through grade school and high school. But once I got to Camden County College, I realized that there was this need for DJs. The college had this event, they needed a DJ, and I kind of did it as a hobby at that point, so I signed up for it, and I got hired. And all of a sudden, they paid me for something that I like to do, and I was like, woo, uh-huh. And so during those 2 years, I also started DJing a lot. Ended up getting a job with a mobile disc jockey company who did weddings and parties and bar mitzvahs and sweet 16s and retirement, everything you can imagine. And man, I fell in love with that too. I think for some of the same reasons, but again, it was another critical part of my career. I was getting comfortable in front of people, kind of dealing with the public, reading the public, interacting. It was a really cool part of my career. And the great thing about it was Friday and Saturday nights, which gave me Saturdays for tournaments and Sundays for tournaments. Awesome gig. Let me tournament fish, go to school during the week, and make a little bit of money on the weekends. It was a great gig. But I think I found myself professionally too, what I wanted to do. When I ended up graduating Camden County College, realizing I want to go to Rowan, I want to stay close, I'm going to stay at home, I want to save the cost. But going to Rowan, I knew that communications at least was my niche, and specifically like writing. Like I figured out that I was good at writing copy, and subconsciously I had done it for years with Top Rod Bassmasters, doing the newsletter for Top Rod for the first couple years, and writing articles, for Top Rod Bassmasters. And I think I started to find my niche in communications and in writing. And so by the time I got to Rowan, I had some real direction on what I wanted to do, on where I thought my career would be. My career is going to end up in advertising or public relations or marketing. That's what I'm good at, so I'm going to go in that direction. It's interesting because when I make that move to Rowan, I still don't have the professional angling thing as a career choice. It's crazy, you know what I mean? Like I'm far along, and I love tournament fishing, and I love competing, but it's still not a realistic goal yet. It's still a goal that, man, wouldn't that be awesome? But nah, I'm a kid from New Jersey, can't do it. Nobody's done it. We hadn't met at that point. I didn't know what you were, you know what I mean? So still
Nobody from the Northeast was successful in tournament angling.
Very few people from the Northeast were successful. You had Randall Romig, you had Rick Lilligard a little bit, and even those guys were more Southern transplants that happened to end up in the Northeast. So there wasn't that direct connection. And you throw on top of that the fact that it was always downplayed. I don't want to say downed, but downplayed by people when you brought it up. Not my family, because they were very supportive even of the dream at this point. But when you would tell people outside of your peer group, or somebody at school, or somebody you worked with, or I bumped into somebody at a DJ gig, and man, I'm thinking about maybe, nah, you can't do it. It was always that same answer. Nobody does it. You're too young. You can't. You got to be from the South. You got to be 40. There's always this negativity about trying to do it. But all that changed when I started fishing some pro-ams. my junior year at rowing. And that was the next big turning point for me, was actually getting out there, fishing a big national event as an amateur, seeing what it was all about, and then actually competing, seeing where I stood with the other 150 best amateur anglers in the world and the other 150 pros. So that was the next big turning point for me. My first one was, it was the spring of 1993, and at the time they were Bassmaster Top 150s, and when you entered, you signed up and you put your name on a thing. There was a small deposit and you'd put it in, and there was such this mass need for amateurs wanted to do it from all over the country, and so it was like a drawing. There wasn't a call in, there wasn't a guarantee. And so I remember that year, college students don't have a lot of money. I put in for 2 events. I put in for Lake Norman, and I put in for another one. And they were the closest events I could find. Lake Norman in North Carolina, and I think the other one might have been Bugs Island in Virginia. They were close. It would cut costs. It wouldn't be so bad. And I remember getting in the mail, getting the slip back that you didn't make Bugs Island. Oh, I was crushed. You know what I mean? That's the one in Virginia. And then a month later, a couple weeks later, the next one came back, and you open it up, and I got picked. I got drawn for the Lake Norman BP Top 150 Bassmaster event. Man, I was so stoked. I was so excited. And green, though, all I've got is from what I've been doing at the club, and getting my butt handed to me in money tournaments at the house. But it was a big, huge turning point for me to see this close what professional fishing was and what these guys did. It was unbelievable. I think I was so in shock over those 4 days that I think I only caught like 2 fish over the course of 4 days and finished probably close to dead last. But I left like this, really amazed at what these guys did and saw the profession up close. It blew me away. It didn't hurt that I had some of the best names in the business that first year. My first draw, first day, Tommy Biffle. Second day, Gary Klein. Third day, Cliff Kraft. Fourth day, David Fritz. Can you imagine fishing with those 4 guys in the first tournament you've ever fished in your life? I've never even been in a bass boat up to that point. Never been in a boat with anything bigger than a trolling motor up to that point. But man, I left there wanting more. And the following year, put in, same thing. Put in for 2 events. This is 1994 now. Put in for 2 events. Same thing. Didn't get drawn for one. Got drawn for another one. I open it up. You're accepted to the Lake Norman tournament. What? It's the same exact place. But I thought that maybe that was a good thing because I'd seen the lake. I saw what the guys in front of me were catching them on. And I thought maybe this would be a good chance for me to have a better event. And went into that tournament and won. And won. And, amazing to win. And same thing, great draws. Cliff Kraft again. Guido Hibden. Chet Dalfit. And Carl Maxfield. All in one event. 4-day event. And, going into the last day, I got about a pound lead, and my uncle drove down with me, and he's got his van. He's got like the A-Team Mr. T van, no hitch on it. And I'm like, Don, let's see what happens. If I end up winning, first place was a bass boat at the time. A fully rigged Ranger boat, 374V with a 150 on the back. Oh my God, a 150 outboard on the back.
At that time
that's what everyone used. That was industry standard.
And it wasn't a certificate.
It wasn't. It was a physical boat. And so the big dilemma, Don, no, don't go get the hitch. If I win, we'll go get it. We'll stay an extra night or whatever. Well, he shows up. He got it. He already got it. He went out and he bought a hitch at U-Haul that day while I fished. And I had a great last day and ended up winning. At that point, leading up to that point, one of the biggest things that ever happened in my life, let alone my fishing career. I remember driving all night home with that. And, I remember like being interviewed and this whole thing I've never felt before. And I got home and it was late. At that point, it was probably 2:00 in the morning. And we pulled in to Uncle Don's yard. And, and he didn't even back in. I think he pulled straight into his yard. And I was so excited I had to sleep in it. It's the spring, so it's not even that hot, but I go back there and I'm just basking in this thing. But huge part of my career, looking back on it, again, things happened at the right time. Was that meant to be? I don't know. But, that to me was a key next step for me because I was still in a John boat, So now all of a sudden I'm in college. I'm a couple years away from my degree. And now I've got this tool that's going to let me compete at a different level. On top of that, I just beat 150 other amateurs from the United States. And if I added up my weight, I end up 30th on the pro side. That was the moment when I got back and said, I might try this, or I want to give this a try to do this professionally when I graduate college. That was the moment that I said that to myself.
That's a huge moment.
It's a huge moment.
What a fantastic, was that the first tournament you've ever won?
That was the first tournament I ever won outside of a club event. Still up to that point at Parvin and Malaga and Wilson's, still haven't won one. Getting better, but not having success at the local level. Outside beating the other 5 guys in the club, 6 guys in the club.
Did they let you back in the club now that you had this big boat?
They did. They let me in the club. They won their fair share of events too, but they did let me in the club. But it was again the next step now, to where, it really opened up my eyes to bigger and better things. And now there was, learning this boat, handling the boat, driving the boat, launching the boat, big water, navigation. Fishing places you never fished before. A big lake to me up to that point was 80 acres, 70, 80, 90 acre lake. I looked out there like, holy. And now I've got the tool to let me fish Lake Kapakam, 2,000 acres. Oh my God. Round Valley Reservoir, 1,000 acres. Oh my God, look how big that lake is. Greenwood, And again, at the time, they looked like immense places. And now I had the tool to fish those places.
A lot of guys, when they win a boat like that, first thing they do is sell it.
Yeah.
Did that ever cross your mind?
Crossed my mind. That never crossed my mind.
I'm keeping this.
Yeah, I'm keeping it. There were some student loan bills that were in the back of my mind. I thought, well, that would help. And but that was a fleeting thought. There was no way that thing was going anywhere. That was my baby. It was staying with me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize that you were a senior when that happened to you. And so you're in rowing.
I'm a junior.
I'm sorry.
I take that back. I'm a junior when that happens.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now you're considering professional fishing as something that you would hope to be able to try someday.
Yeah.
You're still in school.
Yeah.
Still got a long way to go.
Long way to go.
I mean, what were you doing? You trying to finish school at this point?
Yeah. So the next phase for me was, I think once I got that boat and once all of a sudden I said, man, this is something I want to try to do, then it changed things a little bit. From the education perspective, I think it made me focus even more on learning what I was already interested in, because I started to say, well, if this works, this stuff will really help me. The writing classes, the PR classes, the marketing. I think I started to subconsciously say, this is great that I'm in this, I'm going to end up at an ad agency writing copy, but in the small little sliver that I end up fishing professionally, this stuff's going to help me. So I think I started to get more into it. I started to become even a better student because I saw the potential of it, At the same time, as I had more and more success at the club level, beating up on the same 6 or 8 guys, I was ready to expand my wings a little bit. And went from fishing just this small boat club to now entering some events in the New Jersey Bass Federation, which, up to that point, again, was this foreign thing. And I didn't have the boat, and I was scared of it. And these guys are good, Swiss Stack and Schneiderite and Cowan, all these names that I started to hear about. God, no way, you know? But now I've got the tool. I've got the tool to compete with these guys. So, you know, the next phase for me was wanting to fish locally and regionally with the boat and fishing bigger bodies of water. And vividly remember my first event, which was on the Delaware River that I fished. And, you know, gone out and find a few fish in practice and finding a stretch of bank that I had multiple bites, and gone back in that event and just camping on it back and forth through the tidal phases and catching one keeper. And here I am. Oh, here it goes again. Just like Parvin and Wilson, I'm at the bottom of the pack. But, you know, I started to see that stair step. And, you know, from learning to fish with my peers to stinking at the club level to learning more and ending up at the top of my club level. So I started to mentally give myself that buffer. And I wasn't frustrated that the first year in the Federation, I stunk it up really bad, you know, terrible bad. But again, I left with that burning desire to want to do better, you know, and keep fishing local events. And oh yeah, there's this thing called the Redman Circuit. Cool, let's sprinkle them in there too. And now they're fishing a little bit further than New Jersey. They're going to Champlain, and they're going to the Upper Bay, and they're going to Connecticut. And, you know, this stair-step process, you know, all the while I'm still finishing my degree, still DJing, but still wanting to get better at my tournament fishing.
And you're funding these tournaments through your DJ?
Through my
efforts.
DJing. Funding it primarily through DJing and a little bit of help from my family. You know, like I said, up to that point, no real believers in that this could happen. And, you know, this is a big waste of money, except Uncle Don and Pop and Graham and my mom. And so, for sure, a little bit of help from them too, you know. You know, have the old beat up truck that hardly runs, and, you know, you need that, and you need hotels. So, screw it, we'll sleep in the truck. And, you know, the worst hotel rooms when you had, yeah, that's all a normal part for me in the beginning, because there was no money, you know? But that was the first time where I started to look at the other side of professional fishing, which is the sponsor side and the promotion side and the sales side. And I think it was probably my senior year at Rowan where I was actually starting to put together advertising proposals for my ad class and marketing campaigns for mock companies that I said, well, I could do this for myself, you know, and started putting together these super rudimentary promotional packages, almost resumes at the time. And I remember, you know, going to the back of the Bassmaster magazine, and there's a list of all these companies that advertise. And, you know, I'm writing them all and sending these packages out to all of them. And they're all just, none of them get back to me. They're all gone right in the trash. You know what I mean? Except one. I get my first response back, and I think this is right about senior year. This is right before I graduated. I get one back out of 100 I send, and it's Mann's Bait Company. And I'm like, oh my God, Mann's the jelly worm. That's my shit. That's my bait, you know? That's my lure. I love it. Baby -1. And I get this letter back from Suzanne Newsom, who ran the pro staff department there. And she said, we would like to congratulate you, and we would like to invite you to be a part of our Mann's regional pro team. Yeah! Regional pro team for Mann's! And read on. And that will be any product you want at 20% off. Oh, God! No! You know, but even that at the time, cool! You know, here's 20% off. My first sponsor. I could actually put a Mann's patch on my vest. I knew were vests back then, you know, old school. But that was a big moment too. You know, it was a big moment, and I started learning by default, up until I met you. I didn't know anything up until I met you. Learning what I needed to do, you know, from the other side of the sport, promotional side and marketing side and sales side. I started to figure that out a little bit, you know, and that was a good thing. And again, another key part of my learning, you know, starting from the bottom, not knowing what to do, figuring out what I needed to do. That was important.
fishing BFLs, you're doing fishing. What's going on in your personal life? You're about to graduate from rowing?
About to graduate from rowing.
What's happening?
Yep, about to graduate from rowing. Have a steady girlfriend, literally from high school that I had like a year separation from, and hold on, let me piece this together before I get it wrong. It happened in my senior year. Yeah, so. Graduating, was a good thing, but it also left a big question mark. Like, what did I want to do now? Now the reality's setting in, right? Yeah, you want to fish professionally, but I'm getting ready to graduate here. There's got to be some money coming in, more than, the $300, $400 a night, for DJing, which isn't steady. There are weekends that go by that you don't have a gig. All of a sudden there's this big question mark. Wanting to get back with this girl that I've been with for a long time, but she sensed it too. She's like, come on, this fishing thing is a dream. Like, you got to get real. At some point, you're going to have to make a living, To make matters worse, I did a internship at the last part of my senior year at an advertising agency in Mount Laurel called Pellone and Sweeney. And it was a reality check that, as much as I loved that world and writing copy, to get to the level where you actually did that stuff was years and years and years. You don't go into an advertising company and write copy. Are you an idiot? You're looking at 10 years before you get to the point where you're an assistant creative writer, So there was a little reality check there with that internship, but big question mark on my mind. Well, how do I do this? How do I pursue this? But, make a living, and be a normal dude at the same time. And another unfreaking believable thing happened. And it was landing a job I never in a million years thought I'd do or have any interest in or want to do. But I can remember we had a tournament, a federation tournament somewhere, and I needed baits, and this is right after I graduated, within a couple months, and I needed baits for this next tournament. And now we've got this place called Dick's Sporting Goods, brand new place that opened up, and it's in Mount Laurel. I hop on 295, I drive up there, and I get to Dick's, and I'm going in to go back to the lodge and get the baits I need. And as I walk in, there's this big sign on the front door, looking for hunting and fishing managers. Acquire inside. And I'm like, no, so I go in, buy my baits, and on the way out I'm like, what's the deal? And it was like the most amazing thing, so they call me in for an interview, and it's the store manager and a hunting associate there who fished, and they're interviewing me. And I feel like I was kind of like the last interview of 20 or 30 they've had a few days before. And so the hunting associate knew enough about fishing to have these detailed questions written out. And so, well, what's a crankbait? And, what would you recommend for a depth finder? And, so I'm like, oh shit, I know this. This is what I do. And, I can remember going through this interview process, and they were just like, and I blew them away, and again, I didn't want to work at a Dick's. I didn't want to work at retail. But all of a sudden now, here was this job put in front of me where, here's some money. I'm working in a business. I'm getting a 40-hour work week, and I'm working in the fishing section. I'm going to immerse myself in this stuff every day. Key part to the next phase of my life. You know what I mean? From a lot of standpoints, from a monetary standpoint, from the standpoint of them working with me, because they started to see that I would bring in customers because of my knowledge and because of my fishing the Federation and Redman. And the store manager started saying, you can have that week off to go fish that open. And then from the standpoint of working in industry and working with the public, again, nothing was conscious at that point for me. But now all of a sudden I had contacts with the reps. I had a contact with the Daiwa rep. And now instead of this stupid proposal that I put together to know what I was doing, now he's like, well, here's what they want. Here's what Daiwa was looking for. Oh, and I know the guy. I know Bill Liston. I know the national guy. Give it to me and I'll give it to him. Wow, you know? And working with the public. A guy coming in not knowing anything and wanting a combo. A wife coming in and wanting a combo for her husband. I think that was a cool part for me in the teaching process, you know, where I started to learn to like to teach people about fishing. That all happened at Dick's, you know? So again, another one of those moments that it's just weird how it happened looking back on it, you know?
Are you
Still
still DJing?
DJing, but the DJing's starting to fade out a little bit. You know, now once the Dick's job started, I did bigger gigs for the same company. Did bigger gigs. You know, we had a few nightclub gigs that we would do, but that started kind of going by the wayside, and fishing really started to come to the forefront. So at that one point from high school to college where I had this jumbled mess of hobbies and interests, you know, DJing, fishing, you know, hunting antiques with my uncle, believe it or not, I did a little bit of that. All this stuff, fishing started to become more and more important and started to take priority over everything else. So the DJing started to go down. Playing hockey, played for like 2 or 3 leagues through college, that started to go way down. And fishing really started to take the forefront.
And so back to the personal life. What are you doing now? Are you dating still, or what's your personal life?
Yeah, so now the personal life is good. You know, now I'm back with this girl that I've been with for a long time, and now she sees that I have a job, and I think she's starting to see the potential of professional fishing. But I think in her mind still, she's like, you know, you need a job. You need a real job, you know? But I've got it. I'm the manager of the lodge at Store 82 in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, Dick's Sporting Goods. I've got a job. So, you know, things are back with her and I. We're living, we're renting a place in Brooklawn. You know, we're living together. You know, we want to get married. So life is moving on for me at that point. I think that Christmas, so I think I'm at Dick's probably for almost a year. Still, you know, tournament fishing regionally, Federation, Redman, winning some stuff now. You know, now we're a couple years in, so now I'm starting to win some events. You know, win a Federation tournament, win a BFL, win a Redman. Things are starting to happen. I'm starting to see it. You know, my mind, I'm like, God, this is going to happen, you know? I can do it, you know what I mean? And then that Christmas, find out that we're expecting our first child, which was awesome. It was a pretty amazing time, you know. I felt like for me it was the right time. You know, my career is on track to where I want it to be. You know, I'm ready for a child. I think she's ready for a child. We're both in our mid-20s. So, you know, life is moving on. You know, we're going to have a baby, we're going to get married, and we're going to see what happens.